Classroom of the Elite Season 3 Episode 11 is here, concluding the final special exam to end off the first year. And surprisingly enough, I did not hate this episode. In fact, this is probably one of the better episodes this season in terms of an adaptation. Still have quite a bit of cut content to get through. The most notable one being Class B vs T completely skipped. So let's not waste any more time and dive into all the cut content and changes for this week's episode. The episode starts with the White Room flashback, which was actually at the very beginning of volume 11, so I'm really glad that they did not skip it. Also, the anime handles this flashback quite differently, but surprisingly not in a bad way this time around. I'll talk more about this later in the video. The next thing that stands out is the anime skipping a lot of build-up before the match finally starts, which really sucks because the anime cuts out this amazing illustration of Kyo and Arisu standing in front of each other. Also, another odd change is the fact that Kyo and Arisu are sitting in front of each other with the screens blocking their faces, compared to them sitting side by side like the anime showed. Next up, Kyo mentions that he never told Horikita about the information he and Yukimura gathered from Katsuragi. Then we have Kyo intentionally trying to act like he's falling for Arisu's traps so the teachers don't find him sus. Next up we have the basketball game, which had some really weird changes. First up, the game was 5v5 instead of 3v3 like the anime showed, and it's funny as hell how the anime completely erased the existence of their ace player because the class has 25 students instead of 40 like the light novel. And when Kyo switched in Sudo, he pulled out Ike instead of Hondo. Also, the anime showed Sudo winning through teamwork compared to the light novel where he carries the entire game by himself after focusing and not falling for class A's tricks. Next up we have the typing and written tests. The typing test was extremely fast in the light novel as well, though there was a lot of planning and strategizing cut from both of the written tests, such as Kyo intentionally throwing down the English test by putting whoever he could in there, which would allow them to focus all of their academic strength into the next written test, which turned out to be maths. And even though everyone in the class managed to get over 90 points in maths and Yukimura came at the top spot, Class C still lost by 20 points. And Sakayanagi says that Class C might have won if someone like Horikita or Koenji were participating. Then we have the mental math section. This was mostly the same as the anime, aside from Sakayanagi telling Kyo how she managed to stop Katsuragi from betraying them. But after this, instead of continuing the events, we switch back to Class B versus T. Now, there's a very small chance this part gets adapted in the next episode. I personally don't think that it will be, because they've already adapted the end of volume 11, but there's always a small chance. So if you wanna skip this section of the video, I'll leave a timestamp for you guys. When we switch back to their match, we see that they're already done with 4 events, and even though Ichinose's class had 3 of their events selected, they only have 1 win so far. And the reason for that is because a few Class B students are having stomach aches and some of them got into a fight the previous day. Now, as you can expect, this was all most likely done by Ryuen. But this man starts talking shit and blaming the Class B students and tells the teachers to start the next event already. Chabashira tries to tell Ryuen to shut up, but this man did not care at all. And after that, he starts saying that Class B could be using this time to make plans in the bathroom and says that Ichinose is using underhanded tactics. After that, Class B ended up losing the next event as well, which was karate submitted by Class T. And the final event happens to be judo, which was also sent in by Class T. And seeing that Albert was playing for Class T, Ichinose ends up deciding to forfeit the event, resulting in Class T's victory. After that, we get a flashback to the day the exam was announced. Here we see Ishizaki trying to convince Ryuen to help Class T. Their conversation was quite long, but eventually Ryuen tells Ishizaki that they have the best chance against Class B. A few days later, Hiyori calls Ibuki and Ishizaki to plan for the exam at a karaoke bar, and also tells them that she managed to convince Ryuen to come there as well. But Ryuen was supposed to arrive at 4 and it was already 4:30. Ibuki wants to leave at this point, but Hiyori convinces her to stick around for a while. And so, they wait for 3 more hours, after which Ryuen finally shows up, and then they start planning on how to defeat Class B. Ryuen also says something very interesting here. He says that they have the best chance against Class B because they don't have a leader. Naturally, Ishizaki says that Ichinose is their leader, but Ryuen replies that both Ichinose and Kanzaki are not the leader type, and they are the kind of people who work to support their leaders. Ryuen also comes there with the list of his 10 events, all of which required physical strength. And Ryuen also pulls out laxatives, which they're gonna use on Class B students, and he also tells them to stalk Class B students and gather as much information as possible, and then get into some small physical conflicts a few days before the exam. And that's how Ryuen managed to defeat Ichinose. Then we finally move back to Class A versus C. Akito carries the class during the archery event, resulting in 3 wins and 3 losses for both classes. And the final event turns out to be chess. Then we actually get a Horikita POV chapter, which starts with the chess match against Hashimoto and ends when Sakayanagi joins in. Also, the major difference during this match is that the light novel doesn't show the chess match aside from the opening moves. It instead focuses on the atmosphere and dialogue. After Sakayanagi joins in, Kyo is tempted to just watch and see how Horikita fares against Arisu because of how she was about to win against Hashimoto. And after Kyo and Arisu's match begins, he realizes just how incredible Arisu's skills are. And he also says that he would likely lose if he was not giving it his all. Also, the anime adds the White Room flashback in the middle of the match, slowly showing just why this match is so important for Arisu. I actually really like this change for the anime adaptation, as it makes the match feel way more epic and impactful. Eventually, the match ends with Arisu's win. After that, we have a sus line from Hoshimiya sensei, as she says to Kyo that he can cry on her chest if he wants to. But after that, she leans close to his face and basically threatens him after realizing that Ayanokoji was in fact hiding his true abilities after seeing the chess match and seeing how he answered the hardest mental math question. After that, Kyo and Arisu get the results of Class B's match and realize that they are now once again back to Class D. Then we move on to the Tsukishiro scene. First up, Tsukishiro straight up calls Arisu useless because she gave Ayanokoji a protection point instead of getting him expelled, and says that she's the reason their match had to be interfered with. He also gets pissed and says that this was the perfect opportunity to get Kyo expelled, but because of the teachers and Arisu's interference, he managed to survive. After that, Arisu asks Kyo for a rematch, and Kyo mentions that even though he didn't plan to tell anyone about the interference, he is glad that Arisu found out, and he also seemed sad that their match was ruined. So they both go to the library and pick up where their match was interrupted, which ends with Arisu's defeat. And after this match, they both come to the realization that they're both evenly matched at chess and there would be no point in another rematch. After that, they both leave the library and head back. On their way back, Arisu apologizes for being slow, and Kyo says that even though she's slow, he was oddly grateful for that today. Then they talk about a lot of other things, and Arisu even mentions that she's really looking forward to Horikita's growth. After that, Arisu talks about the warmth of human touch, which was handled pretty decently in the anime. Then they continue walking while talking about ordinary everyday things with the setting sun in the background. And the volume ends with this absolutely beautiful illustration ending off this arc. And that is all the cut content and changes for this episode. And now we move on to volume 11.5, the final volume of the first year and my top 1 Classroom of the Elite volume. I honestly don't have much expectations because it's gonna be jammed into 2 episodes, but we'll just have to see. Anyways, that should do it for this video. Leave a like on it if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing for more Classroom of the Elite and just anime content in general.